Item number 2, action on minutes. Any changes?
Nope.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Finance Director report. Dana is not here, but I didn't see anything from her, nor did I don't think I had any call outs necessarily. I saw we're 58% of the way through the year, 72% collected, which continues to reinforce our conservative budgeting from last year, and that we, moving through the year should end up in a very favorable position. The one thing that I did want to take away from this, though, is the item number 3 in her report, the American Rescue Plan Act. Just to get a feeling from Finance Committee about looking at this. I know a separate email was sent out with the formulas that Dana used to kind of get to what would be revenue replacement and what wouldn't be revenue replacement and what would fall under the different categorizations for the allowable uses of the ARP funds. Did you guys get that? Looks something like this with the,
I don't remember that.
It's in the pack.
is it in the packet?
No, not that.
No.
Oh, not that.
I didn't
I
see
don't know what
that.
that is. Sorry.
No. Ben, I don't think we got, or I don't recall getting it. Do you mean like this week or like a year ago?
No, like this week.
No.
All right, well,
No.
let me.
No.
She forwarded it to everybody. Nope, she did not. So let me send it to Jim here so that Jim, you can put it up on the board. If it's all right.
Are you on the admin lot or the admin?
Because what this does is this breaks out
No,
our first round of payments.
internet.
And then it breaks out the suggested use of funds as is listed under here under item 3.
Which I have issues with
Yeah, and then
any of those things.
she categorized them with respect to the, A, B, C, and D for allowable use. And then there's a C and an asterisk that she put on this sheet here that lists that would be used from, say, general fund as revenue replacement. So, Jim, did you get that email? Yeah. I'm sorry?
Yeah, it's loading.
Okay. But yeah, I had some questions on here too, because I think some of these are maybe budgetary items for next year and not necessarily needing to be exercised with this first round of payments or this round of payments period.
The revenue replacement on the gas tax, that's gonna move from this bucket to the general fund bucket, right?
It would move to the streets,
Street bucket.
street, yeah. Yeah, but it would come out of this.
Yeah, it's coming
Yeah.
out of here.
Yep.
I mean, I feel that if we're buying new utility billing software, that should come from the water fund,
There's
not from here.
there's a conversation for that as well, yeah. Because that, we'll get a second round next year
Yeah.
as well, for the same amount. But this is what she sent over. So
I can't read that at all.
so I can go through here. The raise grant is she had listed as coming from revenue replacement, time clock scanners from revenue replacement, scanning the zoning documents from revenue replacement, new chairs, revenue replacement, and the financial and utility billing software, revenue replacement. Mobility hub, $35,000. That's the respond to public health emergency or negative economic impacts, including assistance to households, small businesses, and nonprofits or aids to impacted industries such as tourism, travel, and hospitality. And I believe this we already paid for at a budget stabilization, right? In anticipation of these funds, we pulled
Yeah, I
money
think that one we did.
budget stabilization before this came down with the anticipation of
Or which thing?
Where the,
mobility hub concept.
where the
I don't think
design,
we've actually paid out anything on that. I think we paid out the raise grant.
Okay.
That's when they were helping.
That would be good then, because then we'll just go right from.
Yeah.
This, okay. The dry restroom at Hannah's Park is the first one that I have a call out about.
Gonna have
Well,
one this year.
I think there's bigger things. I mean, I think, I didn't know Dana was putting this in there. My goal was to get with all staff members, accumulate everybody's wish list,
Yes,
and then bring it back to you guys.
yes. And that's with the couple that are on here for like the dry restroom at Hannah's Park. I know that that's a CIP issue that item that we've talked about. But pulling it from this bucket of funds, in my opinion, I don't even think we're close to even being able to execute that by end of calendar year, even if we said, yes, we wanted to do it today, would we?
We don't have to execute these funds this year.
Right. But from a planning perspective, if there are things that are more important rather than the
Oh.
restroom that we couldn't bake into next year's budget
Gotcha.
cycle.
Yeah, it's not gonna get built this year, so
Right.
why not put it in
Exactly.
next year's budget and do it
Exactly.
in the spring?
And that's my thought for that. The scanning of the zoning documents, I think that's on for tonight, right? As an ordinance? Yeah. Or topic, yes. New chairs for council chambers in the conference room. I know it's something that we've talked about doing for a long time.
Well, the conference room chairs have to be
Well,
changed.
we got a call from Licking County to, or actually Teresa did, and I'm going down Thursday. I guess they have a surplus of conference room furniture and stuff. They got new stuff. They're navy blue is all we know, so I'm just gonna go take a look at
Take
them.
a look at. 'Em. Comfortable. They gotta be. next year.
Oh, sure.
That was-
As well as the water, sewer, street and
that
police.
4 hours was about enough. I only had to stand up because it was.
It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
They're not comfortable.
No.
They're not at all.
But yeah, the revenue replacement for the gas tax, I think is a no-brainer. And the new financial and utility billing software, I think requires a much more in-depth conversation. We haven't really had the time to talk through with Dana on her feedback and the presentation that was given a month or so ago at this point, 2 months. But yeah, I agree. In reading through the list, it felt like there's more to consider, especially with what's on this list. So to have a holistic conversation with everybody, to me, makes sense to pull that list together and
We're
understand.
gonna, I'll vet that first and then it'll funnel up to you guys.
Okay,
I shouldn't say vet. We'll gather that information first and then get it to you guys.
yeah. And I think we can even have conversations about the line items within this sub budget at the same time as we're doing the budget discussion for next year, even to understand, because we obviously want to make sure that we're utilizing the funds to their fullest, the fullest extent possible. And with those that can be used for water, sewer, and broadband, that we make sure that we exercise those that can't be used for general fund replacement. So otherwise, I'll make sure to send this to you and Cheryl and Chip, so you guys have it, because there's a piece in here on the right-hand side that has the breakdown of the methodology in terms of the 3-year average for revenue growth and what that missed 2020 income tax is that we are claiming would be filled in for that general fund gap. So, yeah. I honestly think the number that's in there is probably conservative, to be honest with you, based off of homes, new home building and things
Sure.
like that. But if 236 is where we're going based off the methodology, and I think the methodology is even outlined within the program itself, and there probably isn't a whole lot of wiggle room, but I think in terms of actualization, that 236 is probably conservative. So I wanted to make sure that we addressed that, just so we had that in front of us, and to hear that you're taking that away, Jim.
Yes, sir.
That's good. So should we expect to have that as part of the budget? Should we put that on for, okay, as budget?
I don't see why not. I
Okay,
think it's all,
I would agree. Unless there's anything that's immediate and now that needs to come out of it for one way, for one reason or another. But nothing in my head popped out that met that criteria.
no.
Okay. All right, so we will not be moving or actioning on any of those, so that's good. Let's see here. Anything else in the report or the expenditures, revenue that anybody wanted to touch on? Questions about?
I didn't see anything that was glaring.
Okay. There was a question that came up about the bonded projects and the status of those projects. I know I sent an email back to Dana. She sent something out. Cheryl had a question about kind of what the status was for everything at the moment. And some of the confusion, I think, lies in that these projects, as they were bonded, have since changed or split off and what have you. So the 310 water line is really just a bucket of funds without a project. And I believe we split some of those monies off to backfill for the water tower under projection. And then I think some of the funds also went to the Croton Road water line, if I'm not mistaken. I thought the
Yeah,
Croton
she had
Road
something
water
on
line
there.
was under projected as well, based on what it came in. So I think and I sent an email back to Dana, but I know she's not here tonight, so just wanting to put it out there. I think what would help from a finance perspective, especially going into this 2022 budget year, is if we understood where we're actualizing, maybe not necessarily by project, unless that project is the same, but maybe how we're actualizing relative to the bucket that those monies can be spent in terms of how they were bonded.
Yeah, well, we
So-
can clean this up to be accurate in terms of projects and
Like water, sewer, street,
Right.
so that we know what that balance is. So if it's something that, say, the salt storage building has a remaining balance of $26,000, I assume that PO is closed unless
Yeah,
there's
is it
punch list
closed,
items
or-
that we're still.
No, there's a punch list item that they have not.
But do we expect that 26,000 to be expended?
Yes.
We do. Okay. So as an example, if we didn't, then we'd want to understand,
Yeah.
what else it could be used for as an overage, like we've done for other projects. So I think that's what we're trying to get.
it's gonna get real murky because like this 193 is gonna be reimbursed.
Right.
So that's gonna go to zero.
Which is
Okay.
fine, because then we've got that one point
we
whatever
know.
for the sewer.
Yeah.
So we'll get it cleaned up and like you said, we've moved some water into the water tower from the water line at 310. So we can definitely get it reconciled.
That way it would help us if we want to do anything, any new projects, we know what type of money we have left.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're working, Jack, myself, Dana, with like the Sportsman's Club Road water line and Duncan Plains, we'll add all those in.
Right.
Jack was getting me some contracts and some documents, so that's already in process. So we'll have a complete package to you.
Good. That'd be very helpful.
Sent you another flush.
Getting ready for my favorite season, budget season.
And
We're getting there.
Bailey's looking at you like, giddy.
I like budget season.
I like it when we have money to budget.
Yeah, that makes it easy.
Yeah, me too.
I really like budget season the second week of December when we're done with budget season.
And into Christmas.
It's a far
know what
cry
the-
from the
you know what
process
the
you used
carrier-
to have.
That's fair. Much more, it gets better every year, though. I'll say it gets better every year, easier every year.
What is better than me doing it after my daughter was born
Yeah,
in the hospital? I mean, come on. That was fun.
ebbs and flows. That's real dedication right there. I'll tell you that.
No choice. There's no
I
finance.
mean, that's fair. That's fair.
It was either it was getting done or it wasn't, and that's what we did.
All right, I'm really interested in this item number 4, local government distribution piece. Because I know this is a topic that we've had and brought up for at least a year now. And to hear that there's some interest in moving it forward, or at least addressing it on a larger scale, is exciting.
Yeah, I don't know how far back you want to go, but basically the local government fund can only be changed by unanimous vote of 3, which is the county commissioners, the city of Newark, and the rest of the townships and villages combined. 51% have to vote in favor. So Dana and I went down there a while ago and asked formally for the Budget Commission to reconsider the formula that they use, even though they don't even know how they came to that formula. Different conversation.
Yeah.
So Mike Smith and Brad Cottrell, the deputy auditor, they're in agreement, but they don't have a vote. They don't control anything. So what Mike Smith pitched to the commissioners was, can we utilize some of the commissioners' revenue that they get from the local fund and redistribute it based on population to the villages and the townships? It won't change the formula. It purely just puts more money in our pocket. It takes commissioner money and puts it in Village of Johnstown pockets. So long story short, this one is, I think this one is, yeah, so sorry. This is pure population based. So they assigned a value and, city of Newark in this scenario loses 618,000. I bet you they're gonna vote no for that.
They're gonna not
Yeah.
like that.
But this one, from what I can tell, is the commissioners are gonna decrease their, and this is all hypothetical.
Mhm.
If they decrease their percentage by 40%,
that's 10%, right?
yes, sorry, 50 to 40, thank you.
Yeah.
This is what the share then would be to everybody else. So, I mean, it's not huge money. We would go from 44 to 53.
Yeah, I'm getting.
Mhm.
It's not huge, but
Oh.
like Smith was just trying to figure out, how do we get communities more money? From the fact of the matter that the commissioners are gonna come off some sort of money is amazing in itself, but
Mhm.
I just, I don't see the local government fund formula changing.
And this is based off, because I know I'd sent you something back. This is based off of 2019 population.
Is it 2019 or?
I believe so, yeah. In
A
terms of
number
the far
five.
right-hand
Oh,
side.
that's right. Yes, you're right. So this population would change.
It's not census specific, it's 2019 data. Not that it would do anything other than continue to skew the trends that you would see on the far right-hand side.
Correct.
More money is always good. $8,000 is better than nothing. But is the sheer fact that this document was produced mean that the commissioners are at least in favor of supporting the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
That's how Mike Smith related to me. He went in there trying to figure out what's a doable way. Again, this is what Mike's telling me. He went in there and said, hey, the Budget Commission has this request from Johnstown to reevaluate the local government fund formula. Here
Clearly
is,
not fair.
I mean, Newark City gets
As
another
a-
$250,000.
It's today, it's like,
no, I mean, Granville gets
Yeah, they get a lot.
111,000.
what?
What do they do different that
Yeah,
City of Heath, what do they get? 60,000?
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
mean, why is Granville getting so much when they're a wealthy community to
No one
begin
can
with?
answer that question because no one knows how the fund
Well,
formula
formula was
was
done.
was
Then-
designed.
Was it based off of
was-
population from like,
No one can confirm that.
I
Because
think
each
this is a
county,
court case.
each county can determine their own fund formula.
Mhm.
No one,
when we're,
current admin building knows what that formula is.
Truly, this is a court case.
They
but-
know what it is. They don't know how they got to it.
I don't know how they got there.
Okay.
would it make sense that this would have been incorporated with the state income tax in the 70s
Maybe.
Maybe.
and based off of population at that point?
I think Mike Smith said it was around the 70s that it was.
I bet it came around then. And it's probably based off of 1970s population.
I don't know, 1970, I bet you Heath was still bigger than Granville.
You think so? I don't know.
Heath right now is what, 12,000? Granville's, take away the students, probably 5. I would assume.
City.
They're a city now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bet you they fight it.
I'm sure
They're
they
gonna get
will.
their students taken out, I bet. They should have been a city last time. Anyway.
That's the data they're missing is the institutional data. From what I read.
I guess just sharing this information with you all mainly for educational purposes, who knows what it's gonna come to? But Mike said, once they know more,
At least they're paying attention.
Yeah. I mean, $440,000 isn't necessarily a drop in the bucket.
yeah, but it's funny that of that 439, 250 goes to the city
Yeah,
of
Newark-
Newark.
Right.
Newark gets $250,000.
That's just the
right off the
formula.
top.
For a city
They
that
get
can use this
28.64%.
population.
What's that, Marvin?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So what's next step?
I'm supposed to just check in with Mike in a couple weeks to see how I would assume internal talks are going. And then see what's up.
I don't think you're gonna get any pushback with the straight redisbursement of 10% to everybody
No.
as it is. But the initial call out was that the formula isn't up to date or fair. That was the initial call out.
But look at if that were to happen and the formula is redistributed,
Well, for sure.
doesn't stand a chance.
No.
It's totally uphill. Absolutely.
Unless the commissioners make the city of Newark whole and redistribute their 10% to to everybody else.
It's like $1 million swing. I mean,
They won't do that either.
So I don't know.
is there any, it's either these two options or it stays the same? Is there open dialogue to putting together a different formula that maybe makes more sense?
They said they told us that a year ago or whenever we were down there, if we had our own formula, that we could present it. But they were also working on their own.
If we can get them something, we can look at.
And if up in the yellow, if you change that percentage, so the 40 isn't
Mhm.
locked in either.
Right.
So you can change it for discussion's sake.
Well, at least they're engaged in the conversation. That's a good thing.
I was surprised when Mike called. Pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
So, I mean, coming from finance committee, I guess for Jim to take back, because I assume you'd want to follow up with them before our September meeting. Feedback from finance. I mean, I don't know why we would be against it in that it's an additional $8,000. I think the
Yeah.
call out is still that the formula's inaccurate and not fair. But if the county's willing to give out more money, we'll take more money.
Well, it's step one. It's what I would
Yeah.
consider it.
Yeah.
Step one.
Yeah.
What's step one? And then we can work on step two someday.
Someday.
Okay. Yeah, I can share that.
Okay. Item number 5 here, trauma kits and AED. So I put this on here after reading through, I think maybe it was last committee meeting or was reading through your report, chief, where there was some mention of, it was Mike Guttridge when they were going through CPR, and it was in Jack's report 2 weeks ago about potentially looking at trauma kits for the village. And I think you had mentioned, chief, that you were looking to get trauma kits donated to the village. Is that right? Free of charge or?
So I was able to get some trauma kits ordered or donated for the police department.
Okay.
So I believe there was 5 units in there somewhere that were. Since then, The same company is going to be donating, I believe, 12 AEDs to the village.
Okay.
So roughly $1,800 a piece. I think that'd be a savings of about 21,600.
That's great.
And that's
And,
something that we've talked about for a while and wanting to.
It is. So it would be enough for one at the police department, one at the admin, one for council, one for service, one for water, one for sewer, and then one for every police car.
That's fantastic. And the trauma kits would go to each building? Or-
So the trauma kits, I think that Mike Guttridge was thinking about just putting those in their vehicles. So if they were to have like an emergency where somebody was to, well, if something were to happen where somebody was to receive a cut
Mhm.
or something like that, they'd be able to render aid.
Okay.
I don't know in-depth one trauma kit. I was not in the training. But Dana ordered, I think, 13 kits off of Amazon. And got them in trucks. Now, there's tourniquet in there, there's large for tail bandage, if there's a large wound or something like that. So they're more than just a little first aid kit.
Yeah.
But I was not in the training to know what all should be in that trauma kit.
I have a comment. That trauma kit is the link that was sent to me by Hazmat Ohio.
Gotcha. And then what he's describing is what I would recommend too. So they definitely need to have a tourniquet because ideally what you want to do is you want to start the hemorrhaging. You want to stop that bleeding. So they're going to need a pretty large gauze in order to apply pressure and get that bleeding to stop, and then a tourniquet too. So those items are vitally important to what I would consider a trauma kit.
So I opened the one that she had ordered for me, not for me personally. And there are those large bandages, large wraps, tourniquet. There's not a lot of stuff in there, but there's for major wounds.
Okay.
So we have those, and I've got those distributed in the trucks. Now we need to work on the training
How to use it, yeah.
utilize those items.
Okay. Very good. So we have those now. That's great. AEDs, I know were a conversation that we've had for a while as well. Some of the conversation went back to the long-term upkeep on those is the battery replacement, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right. So I was told that they're basically were in a government building because they're not housed in the government building any longer because of people working from home. They put them back out into the civilian world. So they recently had a refresh on the batteries, refresh on the actual pads themselves. But sooner or later, what they're going to need is an update. And that update basically is the machine telling you that you no longer do give breaths. Because now the new standard is that you do only chest compressions. So they need to update it where the machine tells you to stop doing the breaths. It would just tell you to continue doing the compressions. So,
Okay.
and then I also am not sure if it comes with holders. So that's something that we might need to look at too. But it's a very big savings for the
Absolutely.
village.
Is there anything that we can do in terms of a thank you or a letter or something like that?
Absolutely. I think that, yeah, that'd be great.
We can have Chip, maybe you sign on to a letter and Jim and Chief, I think that would go a long way as a thank you, in my opinion. That's a pretty big savings. It's a conversation we've had for a while too. Budget in, so that's great. And it was Hazmat Ohio, is that who it was?
Yep. Yeah. Same company. And so I've been in contact with him pretty regularly with it. And he said that if it wasn't last week, he would try to get him to us this week. So I shot him an email earlier today and asked him where he stood with it, but he's been very responsive and he's been actually great. As a matter of fact, I've got this BDAS, which is like the decontamination spray, and I was going to kind of do like a show and tell for council later on tonight. So I wanted to make sure that I had this, so I was able to pass around everybody to take a look at it.
Sure, perfect. Good deal. Well, that's good. I just wanted to get an update on that because I wasn't sure where we were with that, but I'm glad that everybody has those and we have those distributed out.
And what, just sideline to go along with was September 8th. We have a setup for another group CPR. service. People in here
Good.
for this training. Now, this isn't the, critical training, but it's basic CPR 4-hour course.
Okay,
That will happen September
good.
at 8 o'clock.
Love the training. Very good. Good deal. Well, thank you for those updates and glad that we're able to get those in use and donated from a very reputable company. Item number 6 here, fireworks update. Just wanted to give Finance Committee a heads up from, and I'll give a council a greater detail from the meeting that we had a couple weeks ago. So what we'll have to budget for coming up next year will be for the full fireworks. There's a lot of conversations happening in the events committee about how to fundraise outside of any other, village participation and try and get that number down. I think the budget that we're working under is trying to get to maybe a $15,000 goal to have a $10,000 entire show and 5,000 roll over year after year to kind of give some seed money thereafter. Just how do we get there? So the show itself and talking with Hamburg about where we're looking to be is $6,000. And then the local band that's looking to perform, which is At It Again, which is Shane Langley and Austin Thorpe, their band. About $400, I think they said, for the show. So that's kind of where we're at the moment. But the hope is that, with the Legion representative there, the Legion will continue to fundraise, from their end. And the hope is that in the meantime, we can look at other ways to fundraise so that it's maybe its own independent entity that isn't completely done by the village, but almost its own kind of nonprofit thing that works amongst itself. So just want to give everybody an update on the conversations happening there. Hartford Waterline is, I know we've got a lot of things on the agenda for tonight. Is there anything on the Hartford Waterline that we wanted to touch on for this
I can
evening?
give you a quick, hot off the press, back of the napkin analysis that I just wrapped up. One second. So here's a nice pretty map that you can't really tell what it is, but I'll walk you through it. This map shows obviously 2 days here, so we pick it up and go up to the village. I did an analysis and pulled all the addresses that are along that corridor, and there are about 200 addresses. So I don't know how many of those would actually hook on or whatnot. There's 168 residential and 30 commercial. I was just trying to prepare for Thursday, and I took the pipe length, almost 9 miles, went down to our $1 million Croton Road water line, did a price per foot, which is about, it came out to be about $190 a foot for construction for the main water line. I tacked on $35 per foot because we're going to be in the village for that water line. Total assumptions could be completely off, but just needed to wrap my own brain around what this is going to cost. So the main water line from New Day to the fairgrounds would be almost 9 million. That's just construction cost. Within the village itself, all the chutes would be 3 million. So we will have other things, house taps and connections. We've asked the county engineer to include 1.25 million in House Bill 168 money, which is the water and wastewater fund for that. And then we also have 3 million for another water tower, again, construction cost. All those county ARP funds, you'll see no village up here at all. And then you gotta get to the soft costs, you gotta design it, you have to inspect it, you have to administer the contract.
Right down there.
And then you have to bid the project as well. So if you look at the cost total, 15, almost 60 million in construction, and then another 2 in soft costs. So between county ERP and the money for House Bill 168, we would be around that much. We also asked in House Bill 168 for 1.5 million to augment or supplement the cost of expansion of the water plant as well, because there's a,
For us,
for us,
for the water we're gonna supply to them.
correct.
So for the tap-ins, would we be firm say it has to be the 7,500 that we get here, or how would that work?
Yeah. I mean, that's what a tap costs. That these $1.25 million would be for that whole purpose of, I guess, us paying ourselves, but on behalf of the homeowner,
Right,
the money is available. Also tap fee and a contractor to come in and actually make the physical connection too.
okay, and that's included in there,
That's all we,
maybe?
yeah. I mean, what we can probably do is say, once the $1.25 million is gone.
First come,
in order
first
to-
served.
But that would get us, probably 120, let's say 10 grand. We got 7 for the tap, 3 for install. It gets you 125 taps.
So this way, the way that you're looking at it here is that the construction would be handled solely by county ARP funds. Nothing from Johnstown. There would be reimbursement for, potentially, we've had reimbursement for the capacity that would be taken from the water plant.
1.5, it's not listed here, but
Right.
yes.
So the capacity piece would be taken, and then inclusion there too of the water connection. The 1.2 million for the House Bill 168 to aid those residents along that route to be able to help them tap in as well. So it would really, there would be very minimal, if anything, that would come from the village, nothing from the village, really.
I mean, you'll have my time, Jack's time, it's Dana's time, and just
Yeah.
overall administration of the project. But for like the contract and everything like that, that's in the soft cost. But yeah, I stand firm that we don't spend a dime of our money.
And this takes it and it expands the water from Johnstown down to Hartford, an area that would need it, that does need it. And the county really helps by and large get it there with our facilities.
Correct.
Jim, do you have enough on, for the cost of the water tower? Because I mean, they went up, it's like 3.1, Jack.
So I have 3 in the construction of it,
Yeah,
and then the soft cost has another 10% for engineering of it.
thinking about buying the land for it to sit on.
No. it's-
You need to include that too, because I mean, it would cost us 100,000, so I would up that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Yes, Mark.
And that,
Odds are they won't build it. Half a gallon tower though, it's probably. Maybe the standpipe. Because the residents are, we're at 5,000. Here,
Mhm.
we're talking. For
Couple
like
hundred in the fairgrounds.
size, just talk about like size, Alexandria has 200 services. 95 services
at max.
at max. They have 100,000 gallon standpipe. 100,000.
What's a standpipe?
The difference between a standpipe and a tower, I don't like standpipes. But a tower, you pump all the water up to a bowl on the top and it creates the pressure that, flows out of your house. Standpipe is just a solid tube, the whole tube flows. As you use, let's say on 100,000 gallons, when you use that first 20,000, your pressure drops pretty dramatically. Where what we do, we hold all the water up, give us
Mhm.
better pressure and worse flow. So, if standpipe, like I said, it's just a straight hollow tube. But I don't know if you remember Johnstown's original
I don't.
tower. I see more now. That was a 50,000 gallon, but I see something more along the 200,000 gallon tower. I don't think it requires. So, Jim's cost may or may not include.
So his cost, do you think we safe?
Yeah, because I don't think we'll spend 3 million. I don't think we'll build a half million.
No.
Half after
Okay.
that at most.
So
Yeah,
no, we were just surprised by how much more this costs,
Right.
the one we're building right now, than what we
Well,
anticipated.
and I'm not saying it'll go down, but it's a product of the no steel, no iron, nobody's making anything, nobody can transfer. I mean, the cost, well, all materials in water and sewer are up right now, as they are with most things. You can't get it shipped. You
Mhm.
can't get anybody to make it. So you would think, we would hope 2 years from now, when that's happened, maybe things have settled down. And we've got more norms. You never know.
one thing I also did was created just a scenario of over 20 years, just getting 100 people on
Mhm.
at 5 a year for 20 years. With only a set increase in rate for, wait, nope, I can't do this. I did water and sewer. Let me fix that and I'll get back to you. But yeah, that throws my credibility out the window. But I do have that.
Better to catch it now.
I just had to fix, I did 3250 a month, which is our water and sewer bill total. But I'll get that out back to you.
Marvin, did you have a comment or question?
Yes.
They would be under separate contract. wouldn't
That would be a contract. So if
They don't
They're
just
taking-
tap on.
Hmm.
Like a resident in Croton would.
well, they could, but if we would have to negotiate that because with New Day, there was no line. So if Trillium would connect, I guess what, they'd just literally pay their connection fee.
That fees for their size, and we don't have to recoup any costs.
The county paid for it. So what size tap did New Day use? 6-inch? 3? So 100 and some thousand probably for water. So we would get the water tap capacity fee, but we're still out no money because the commissioners are putting the pipe in.
Yeah,
Would we, if they would use a lot of water, which they could, are we planning for that? If that would happen?
I actually talked to Jim. Of course, we're doubling in size. We're gonna go from 1 million to 2 million. And we're using at max around over 800,000 gallons a day. So that depends on what type of growth Johnstown, has. We've got that next million. But in this plant with regrading some filters and maybe some allowances in the future, we would almost have 500,000 gallons already built in. I am working right now to get our filters. This is a lot of stuff may not mean a lot to you, but they're rated at 2 gallons per minute per square foot. Well, our water is so clean coming out and through before it ever goes through the filters. I currently have engineers working on re-rating those filters to 4 gallons per minute per square foot. Designer of the Claritin says our current Claritin that would sit in Iowa or Illinois be able to produce 1.25 million gallons a day, not a million. The Ohio EPA, which is much more stringent, says we can only produce 8 gallons a day. So if we add this second unit and add just 2 more filters, not 3, but get them regraded, then, if we have a nice, bright, young operator or a good attorney, one of the two, in the future, when we think we're going to need to expand again, I think we can then leverage the EPA to let us run a test on an existing plant and turn those flows up 1 million to 1.2 on each one. We have 500,000 gallons available. Now, I can't do that today because the EPA is still, the Ohio EPA is still more stringent on contact times flow through the unit. But as time goes forward, once it's built, so I think we're going to be able to push that plant, even though we're only going to be rated for 2 million now, probably 15, 20 years from now, we'll be able to push that rating up to 2 million without additional construction.
Is there any mechanism on our end that would give us the ability to ensure that if a large water user along that line wanted wanted to tap in, that we would have to negotiate in the contract?
Technically, every tap outside of the village would have to be approved by council, right?
Yes.
So
So even coming in, when they express their interest, or say, if a large water user submitted an application, just to submit an application to tap in, or however they go about doing that, has brought your attention that that was outside of the village, that would immediately start the negotiation, and thus you would have a contract negotiation type.
because they also pay double the amount.
Right, so it
That's what
would,
they don't want.
and
So
so then,
there's your negotiation.
that's where you would get from a situation of recoupment from capacity or something to that effect, that might be a part of that negotiation.
And every time we hook up facilities, we have to verify that we can supply that.
Right.
facility. And let's say Campbell Soup's factory comes in there and they need 1 million gallons a day on their own. We can simply say no.
Yeah.
We can't.
Yeah.
Without major
Upgrades, yeah.
increases. And at that time, we ask the question. Will it increase? Because without you, we don't.
Just,
We get our final.
You've got the rating of 2 million gallons, but we are going to not stop there. Once we get the new plant built, we're going to continue to monitor the aquifer, make sure we have the 3rd million available.
What we're doing, we're dropping monitoring devices in the wells that we don't have as of today.
Right?
But
Yes.
so when we go through this whole exercise in the future, we'll have data to show the recharge rate and all that stuff.
Either yes, we can, or no, we can't. But the next million has been agreed upon by the engineers and the hydrogeologists, that it is big. Up to 2 million. And then, our one hydrogeologist group said, well, somewhere between 1.5 and 3.5, so. But
really
this-
covering your bases.
Yeah,
there.
the other group we're working with, they said, yes, you have the 2 million, and we're gonna continue to study. As Jim said, we're putting devices in the wells to draw down and recharge, then verify the next million. Yes. Someday, if Johnstown continues to grow, we're gonna have another well field.
Someplace, yeah.
But this last plant, now we're growing much quicker, but this last plant was built, with 30 years before we had to do any upgrades.
Our understanding when it.
Well, since it's cooled off, we're down to about 650,000 gallons a day, which makes me breathe.
And people are back to work.
Makes me breathe
Yeah.
easier and people back to work. But during that heat, we were up over 800,000 gallons a day, and that continued for quite a few numbers of days. So this plant we're building, which won't be done for 2 years, ought to come online pretty much when we need it, but it will also stop us from being in any emergency situation. It's the peak flows that we can't cover. You've heard in the past, Columbus and other communities go on watering bans, and that's because they could not supply enough water to feed what everybody were needing. So the fact that we're bumping, we have a lot of days over 800,000 gallons a day is a concern, but that's why we're building a new plant, so we can max those days and stay ahead of it. Well, Johnstown is well taken care of at its current and future size, I guess, in my
So this is all in preparation for Thursday's meeting at this point.
Yeah, I just needed to be more comfortable of what
What time's the meeting again?
5:30
Right there, here.
here.
Do you feel like what you have in front of you is sufficient to answer questions that you might get? Do you think that's in line with the conversations up to this point with expectation on funding and things like that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the commissioners are ultimately gonna have to check
No.
if council wants to do it. I mean, that's also the
Right.
bigger thing of, you know, because there is concerns out there, and I'm not saying I don't have the same concerns, but you know, pretty soon after this meeting on Thursday, there's gonna be, we as a community,
Yes or no?
yes or no.
How quickly do you think we'll understand from what is being asked to be put in that, was it HB 168? Whether or not that'll come to fruition?
I don't know.
Because that in my mind is probably a lot of the questions that are out there, what's going to hinge on.
Yeah, because even if the commissioners say yes to 18 million and we don't have the wherewithal to get them hooked on, the deal's done. It's dead. So there's been no timeline for announcements of those.
Is this considered a county priority project?
From an ARP standpoint,
Yeah.
yes. Ours and Hanover.
Hanover.
Where are they getting their water from? Newark?
Newark.
So I guess wait for Thursday or come to the meeting and understand.
Yeah, just, yeah, I mean, we're all trying to figure it out. So,
But ultimately, the understanding too is that this money that they're looking at is specific for this line. It's not as if they're taking this money and we can run line down 37 with it or something like that. That would all be on us. This is just, it's this money for this project or it's no money and it's back on us.
correct.
Yeah, it has to go to a community.
Yep.
Of lower median income. You know, it's like, so we talked in the finance committee, it would be great to run down 37 for speculation, but we won't get the money.
For sure. That would all be on us. That'd be another bonding round and
Yeah,
stuff.
that's another bonding, that's Johnstown funding that. Actually, this Croton is our only target for that money. There's no place else Johnstown goes. County to spend it. they've
Right.
given us spend it. It's either there or nowhere.
Okay.
I can't think of another direction we could go with it. Jim, do you?
Now with
Because
the,
Andrew already has it, they're not going to spend it on a redundant connection.
That is correct.
So I don't see any other places to go with it.
says a guaranteed end user.
My concern is with that, you know, the tap ins, that 168.
Mhm.
Timing of that with the timing that, you know, the county wants us to make our decision and when they have to use the funds. I mean, like,
I would hope they would all be in communication. and know
hope
that
so,
This is
but-
all hinging on everybody's
Yeah.
discussions, especially with Mark Frazier. Is he going to be there on Thursday as well or not? It's just county and Hartford now.
I mean, if they don't connect, I mean, Jim made it very clear at the last meeting, commissioners. All of us.
Sure.
It all has to connect.
Yep.
Yes, sir. They got their first half like we did through the ARPA 18 billion.
Depends on how much they use. I don't know.
We haven't had that discussion, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's not.
'cause that's a EPA loan, right? So that's
Yeah,
probably what,
that's not
zero,
part of what we're talking about. EPA would have to forgive that.
he's saying county pay it off with their ARPA.
no, I don't think they will either.
I mean, they might, I mean, I suppose, but that would be for Croton to ask, I would think. Did they pay off existing loan with this, or does this have to be investment new?
I don't think you. can-
Doesn't sound like
I
it would
don't
meet a
think-
requirement.
Yeah, yes, I thought this had to be investment to new areas that are.
Underserved, yeah.
Yeah, because they want to see pipe in the ground. They don't want to see
balance sheets.
notes be paid off.
Yeah,
Good point.
this creates jobs.
5:30 on Thursday. All right. I think you put some good numbers together. I'm anxious to hear the conversation coming out on Thursday for sure. Everybody here. Impact fee discussion. So I know you sent some information along, Jim, about impact fees. Pataskala put an RFP out there and a study done somewhere north of $30,000 for the methodology, $30,000 and 300 pages.
37,000, I think.
And 300 plus pages about the methodology into how to formulate their impact fees and things like that. So I added it to the discussion today because I think in some way this will also have some impact to planning and zoning as we discuss in-kind contribution and developer requirements for the new zoning code. But wanted to put this on there for you to maybe expand a little bit on or what you see us doing here.
Yeah, basically we would hire a company similar to what the design standards or the tap and capacity fee study that CT did for us. And then, it's a legally defensible document that we can say, hey, here's our planned infrastructure improvements. Here's where there's problems. And then, they go and do their magic behind the scenes and produce a 300-page document that essentially tells us we need to charge X amount of dollars for each specific area of need that's collected at the time of a zoning permit or something, a building permit, and goes into the pot of money that can only be used for that specific purpose. So you can't collect something from Concord East Traffic Circle Fund and go drop money over in Raccoon Creek Estates. But all that stuff would be discussed and vetted during the whole process in which we would pay the consultant. So
Pataskala was specific to street. Is that right? Did I read that right?
I think it was. I don't think they had parks or anything else in there.
I think it.
But you could have parks, police,
Okay.
streets,
Mhm.
water, sewer, whatever you want to be in there. Now you add those silos of interest, and you also add your money to go investigate that. So that 37,000 may increase.
I think it's something we should really consider because, I mean, we're gonna get hit with developers. I mean, as everything keeps coming out this way, and I'd rather be ahead of the game than behind the 8 ball. And I think now's a good time to proceed ahead with a project like this. You know, street maintenance is always a big thing for us. The lights in the neighborhoods, that's another issue that, it's a lot. So, I think that's something we should move forward with myself.
We've updated a lot of our foundational documents in the last several years. I mean, and we've updated the tap and capacity fee, which I feels like it's a very similar methodology to where you can only use those funds for a certain amount, but you've got all the data behind it as to why it is the level that it is. And this to me with impact fees is something that we've been tossing around since I've been on council. We haven't necessarily enacted any kind of mechanism to do anything about it. So understanding that Pataskala at least has a baseline, you put an RFP out there, you have a conversation, see what they come up with. I'm all for it. I think it definitely is something that we should look at as a part of the 2022 budget cycle going into next year. I don't think there's necessarily a need to action on it, say, today. But I feel like it's definitely something we can entertain for the 2022 budget cycle.
On the tap, oh, I'm sorry. I can say on the tap fee schedule, we've used that twice, just in a very dependable document. Shows how we came up with it, why we came up with it, what it's being used for. I think we were very fortunate, we went that route, we had needed it twice in the last 30 to 60 days to support our stance.
The methodology definitely makes sense and it covers the bases.
Yeah,
in
so when
terms
they
of-
asked for it, we said, yes, here it is. It's not something Johnstown concocted on its own.
Dream this out of.
Yeah, we just didn't grab these numbers.
Mhm.
You know, these are defensible in court.
And
Maybe-
that's why I agree with going with it because it's legally defensible. And actually, I would like to see it moved ahead and not put it off till next year.
To that
I'd rather do
point,
it sooner rather than
I'd
later.
rather do it sooner than later because you never know when one of these lands is going to be up and somebody's coming in.
two things I wanted to clarify. I agree with you, Cheryl. If we're gonna do it, you're probably looking at 8 months, maybe, give or take.
For the consultant to finish the. job.
Correct.
Mhm.
Depending on, again, how much we want them to look at. You know, if it's just streets, maybe not, but by the time you get the RFP out, you select a consultant, you got I mean, you got 3 months just trying to select somebody. Another thing is it's for the citizenry watching, it's only for new builds, so it's not going to affect anybody that's currently living in town. And then again, reiteration that it's a one-time fee, it's not a recurring cost. So these are monies that should be expended for capital projects.
I'd be curious to understand if the dollar amount that we're using as a baseline for Pataskla is just based off the scope, or if that's a standard amount that you would expect for a document like this. Do you have any idea whatsoever?
No. What they produced and what they paid, I think that's comparable. I mean, I haven't read all 300 pages and there's a lot of methodology in there, but
37,000.
37,000. I mean, if you look at, there's more data and there's more analytics, and whereas our design regs was more art,
Mhm.
was a little bit of that, but there's also design aspects to it. And again, what do we want? Do we want police, fire, parks? Not fire, police, parks, you know, that's gonna jostle your cost around too.
Well, you think of a development, I definitely think of the increase on the roads. And, you know, the taking care of all the additional streetlights. So that would be the two I would consider. I mean, that takes up a lot of time for those two.
Two other things to think about now that we're a city, or we will be a city, is stormwater management requirements
Oh.
and a stormwater utility.
Okay.
You know, another utility that would go on people's bills, as well as there is a possibility of doing a lighting utility where you put fees on neighborhoods to upkeep the cost of their lights. So
Okay.
So about rolling that away from the HOA like we did on the Pulte project.
no, but it could be implemented in older neighborhoods.
Because the newer neighborhoods were telling HOA they have to support, take care of their own light.
Their own lights. Okay, I didn't know that.
And they had.
Pulte's the first one.
Oh.
Upkeep it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they can't just put it in and HOA, okay, we're gonna pay for the lights.
Turn them off.
Turn 'em on. So I mean, didn't we build that way that they must keep the lights on and maintenance as part of the HOA? So. the
Okay.
village is no longer paying for the new development.
Now, but the village, you go in and replace them if they're out, or how does that work?
That's 100%. We will go in and see what lights are out
Uh-huh.
and what needs maintenance, and then the HOA's responsibility. Now, I'm not sure our leverage over the HOA. That's part of
Okay.
the standard. They will pay the electric bill and they will pay.
Didn't know that.
You will tell them what needs maintenance, but just like in our community, if there's lights out in a
Mhm.
section of the community, they're gonna call the HOA and go, hey, I paid my HOA. I need you to fix the lights."
Didn't know that.
Absolutely.
It would be. Oh, almost 40, I think.
Sorry, Marvin, you're talking about having it under the HOA responsibility for the roadways? It's possible. We got to figure out the mechanism for it, but I've never seen it, but
That's,
They'd be private roads.
it'd be private roads. They could gate them, they could shut them off, you know. So I think you can, we just got to know the consequences of,
what's the the Concord Crossing condominiums.
Private.
That's private.
That's private.
Because
Private road.
condominiums are usually private.
Okay.
Just the function of how that property is developed is different than a single family home.
It's not a public street per se. People aren't gonna drive through that development to get to another
But
road.
like with our zoning code, we require 250 feet of lot frontage on a public road. So it gets a little hairy, I think, when we say we're not gonna take your roads, and they're gonna be like, well, yeah, you can't tell me to put 250 feet. So there goes your density conversation, because they're gonna say, well, if it's private roads, I can have whatever frontage I want or something. So
Wow.
there's just some scenarios you gotta run through on the situation of having a HOA own and maintain roadways.
And then I guess one more thing I can add is that like earlier today, there was a subject that was trespass from the very property that you're talking about because it's private.
Yeah.
So if it was to be returned into the hands of the HOA, you might run into a situation like that where a citizen can basically be given a no trespass warning to not enter any of the streets within that community
Really? Okay.
Because of private.
because it's privately owned, correct?
Okay, well, getting back to the impact fee, I would like to move forward with a study during this year.
So the question with that, how long, we would put out, an RFP, how long would that time frame be until we choose somebody to execute the study?
First, you're gonna have to build what the RFP is going
I'm gonna have to
Right.
work with council to figure out what you want to be looked at.
My point is that I'm not sure if the money's there to do it tomorrow if we wanted to. But I'm not sure if any checks are going to be cut of a substantial amount until 2022, even if we move forward with this.
I see what you're saying. August.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Say,
I know what you're saying,
Let's say it takes at least a month to develop
an
what
RFP.
we're gonna put out, develop an RFP for people then to respond to.
I'm gonna grab Pataskala's and massage that one.
So if you got 4 weeks, let's say mid-September, until anything's put out there, how long does an RFP usually sit?
I would do 3 weeks.
3 weeks to sit out there?
Half from the time the RFP went out to the time that
Make a
Signed a
decision.
So,
You're looking end of the year anyway until really.
November, yeah.
So I think we can put this into the budget and then feel comfortable that if anything were to come up, we could cut a check for it and be fine.
Right,
If we move faster, if something happens.
Right.
right, yeah.
But yeah, I agreed.
Back
I
to
don't,
your plate, Jim.
Well, I think you've got a good plan there. I think we get all the groundwork laid and the RFP out for a project that you paid for out of.
Mhm.
So I'm hearing that as a direction to create the RFP
And we, yeah.
in content.
Gonna make the motion.
Yes, I'll make a motion that would proceed, get an RFP on the impact fees for new developments.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Cool.
So that'll give us that time frame, and I think the understanding is again that the money is going to be there, but most likely it's not going to come out until 2022 anyway.
Mhm.
So we just want to make sure that that piece, however it comes back, at least $40,000 is set aside in the budget for next year,
Sounds
just
good.
baked in.
Some other community that's done one recently,
Yeah,
Now did
between the two of them.
we can rip off and duplicate.
Explore Licking County ad. This is
Okay.
Chip. Did you get a quote on that?
Yeah, I'd like the travel magazine for Licking County. We can use, American Rescue Plan funds for it, to pay for the ad because it's tourism related. There's the magazine. And I'd like to do the full page, which would be $1,995 plus premium listing, another extra 150, and then to have, I would recommend that the ELC staff, who are really good, let them design the ad too. According to what we want in it. So you're looking at, probably $2,100, $2,200. And it can come out of the American Rescue Fund, our American Rescue Funds. And we haven't, as a community, contributed anything to ELC and that will help. ELC is also hosting the Ohio Travel Convention. Be in Newark this fall. So
Good timing.
that's one of the reasons that the magazine will be
When does,
put out.
when does the magazine come out?
I think it'll come out in October
Oh.
for that event.
Okay.
That's
You
why-
need to answer it like tonight.
Yeah. If we can.
30,000 copies distributed.
It feels like a decent ROI in my
Yeah,
opinion, to
sounds
be
good
honest
to
with you,
me.
No, I
especially
think
the
that
timing
much,
this year.
It'll help our business community show point that we can point to and say, we did this, and it certainly falls within the ARP
Yeah.
Yeah.
criteria.
Economic development. I mean, we'd be showcasing what's in the village and, you know, things to come and see, the trailhead and the upgrades that we've done.
At Restaurants.
Absolutely.
You can go any number of ways.
I'll be perfectly honest. I can draw stick figures, but I can't do any of this.
That's
So
why
if,
I
if
just-
ELC can do that,
Yeah.
That's why I
Yeah.
suggested just contract with them and let them.
yeah.
Yeah, we could talk about that.
Just take a day and do the RFP and take another day and do the ad.
Then have storms roll through.
And the power goes out.
Well, so Chip, you said contracts, so we'll pay them as well to help.
Yeah, I'll have to talk to them, see if they can do it
S-
for us. But they do they're doing a lot of their own stuff now in-house. And not going out to private vendors.
So can,
Like for the design of the magazine, they're doing it all in-house. They're really good.
I would ask then,
Snaps.
if that's the case, to, 2,400 for the print and then maybe round up to 3,000 just to allow for a contract
Just-
between ELC and us.
Yeah, we can, and then we could, whatever else we need, we probably get them to do it. So,
Cause that would give $600 to them for helping to design it.
yeah, we'll figure out.
I mean, it's coming from ARP. It's not as if it's going to,
Coming out of the other bucket, so.
and it's not as if it's going to a company that's in Arizona. I mean, it's staying within Licking County at the very least, going to promote tourism here as well as in Licking County. So that's a local good in my view.
I think I think we'll get a lot of credit for being supportive.
Well, I'll make a motion to move forward with 3,000 for the Explore Licking County ad
Second.
out of the ARP fund. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Seeing as how we have 14 minutes here left, I don't think we're going to be able to touch on everything. The software solution discussion, which is item 12, Dana isn't here. We can push that off to September, but I think really that's probably going to end up being a 2022 budget item discussion just because of the sheer dollar amount that's being placed on it. The Intellinetics cost quote for zoning file scanning, Bailey, is that something that we can look at for 2022 as well? Okay. Will the quote hold?
No.
No?
Okay.
What is the deadline for the quote?
I believe it says on there that it's good for, I mean, I can ask him, but
So how much stuff do we have that has not been, like, everything?
Yeah.
The whole history of zoning and whatever and every doc.
7 file cabinets?
you've been in Jim Blair's office.
6.
So this is archival.
This is, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the new system is already doing it for us.
So it's a one-time, is the 3,800? Is that what I'm looking at?
20 grand.
Where's that 20 grand?
Where do we come up with 20 grand?
Yeah, I just see a 3,800.
I get 3,800.
Pricing, that
Yeah.
chart,
3,800 is the one-time
that's
fee
the
to
drop
do the
off
order.
pickup. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
oh, I see. Wow, okay. Have we
Yeah.
gotten any other quotes for this?
I like the fact that this is a developmentally disabled company, ARC, an ARC
Right.
company. I think that,
They gave us a very reasonable
but it's doing the right thing. so.
or a fee for my scanning, the council stuff. So we thought, oh, what the heck? Let's, get us a quote for the zoning stuff. And it's higher.
Well, because we have.
There's a lot more stuff.
Never done it.
And there's a lot more. Yeah.
It's like,
No.
So Bailey, the cost, is that coming from page 4 under the cost estimate? Where we're adding up all those costs?
Everything.
Under pricing.
Like 18.4.
Okay,
I mean, we have somewhere in some bucket, we have the money to do this. I mean, it's just like bite the bullet and do it and not think about it.
It is archival. It would have to come from general fund.
30 days. The quote's good for 30 days.
30 days,
And the total was 20 grand.
basically 20, yeah.
20.
But from your understanding, the cost of the service, what they're quoting us is reasonable.
Yeah, I think even if you went to a different company, it would probably be right around.
So does that leave any other large amount of documentation that we have records of that nothing has been done with? Is this the last of the
My
archival?
water and sewer prints. Water and sewer plans.
Water sewer plans, EPA reports.
Are those like,
Again, we're still trying to transfer those on to iWorks. Those were scanned.
so we may have to do another tranche of this next year for those
I mean,
kind
I'm
of
not worried
documents.
about it, right?
Well, I know, but we're trying to do the right thing here and.
But if the water plant goes up in flames, obviously we have big problems.
We have water.
We got
True.
water.
So we can
That's what I,
light a fire.
that's what I
So-
mentioned before.
Are we looking on that, Ben? We do it now?
We can do it. The money's there. It's from general fund.
We got it for $10.
Yeah. I was
It's a
gonna say,
one-time fee.
might as well just do it and get it.
That
over
would be
with.
fine for the regular
Well,
size documents, the larger ones with the,
I'll
Yeah,
make
the
a motion
larger-
that we contract with Intello, whatever it is, to scan the planning, is it this planning and zoning documents? Is that what we call them? Okay.
And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Um. Let's see, portable radio consideration chief. I think you made a note in here about it meeting ARP guidelines.
Yes, I believe that it would.
Okay, is that something that you can maybe within the scope of the administration getting together and talking about that list by department, you can put on that
Yes.
list? Is that okay? Is there anything high level you wanted to touch on with those real quick?
Just, so the promotion's basically good from now until the end of August. It'd save us roughly $12,000 a year. Sooner or later, we'll have to look at the radios. I don't think that it's super pressing that it be done immediately, but there is a substantial amount of savings, and I do believe that it can be paid with ARP funds.
Okay,
Yeah, and chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but the radios in a couple years will no longer be supported. Is that
Correct, and
correct?
that has something to do with an encryption. So currently, none of the radios have encryption. And I heard through the EMA, Sean Grady through the EMA said roughly in 23, they're going to require encryption level on all the radios statewide. But then I've also heard some rumors that it could be as far as 25. I contacted REM, which is the manufacturer. They said that they do have a way to get around it. However, they would basically have to disassemble the radios, add new logic boards, as well as chips, and then reprogram them. And when I asked about that, he said, I don't know what that's going to be on price, but it could be pretty close to the purchase of the new radios with the discount.
so
And then it would be for 17 units. These 17 units would cover all patrol, administrative radio, radios for auxiliary officers, and then one for dispatch center. And then the one for dispatch center, they would use to, if they need to go to the restroom or something like that, they take a portable radio with them because they can't take console radio with them.
$12,000 is a pretty substantial discount.
It is a pretty
is.
substantial discount. Yeah, basically what it comes down to is about $708 per unit.
This can be, funds can be used for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What's the difference between the two quotations you gave us besides?
With
So
or without.
when I
Oh,
learned,
okay.
when I learned that we were going to get the ARP fund, Mr. Leonard said, hey, everybody come up with a wish list. So one of my wish list items was, hey, let's get new portable radios because I know sooner or later we're going to require replacement on them.
Mhm.
So back in March, I requested a price on them. He gave me a $48,000 quote.
Okay.
And then I kind of learned that we weren't going to get as much funding as we were supposed to. So then me personally, I tabled it and I was like, I'll chase that a little bit later down the road. But then REM reached out to me and said, hey, we got this promotion. Is this something that you're still interested in? And I said, well, with
Yeah.
$12,000, let me put it in front of my committee and see what they say.
I don't know if we can pass that up.
No, I just say go
Yeah,
with
I think
it.
we should
Go with it.
And this is Vikings, the newest series. They said that we're going to get roughly 2 decades out of this particular platform. And it's the second series of this new platform. Radios are going to be just like cell phones. Eventually they're going to get old. The technology is going to get old. And that's what we're running into with our current radio system. We just replaced the in-car systems and basically would make it where the in-car systems and the personal radios would run within the same upgrade timeline too, which is another benefit.
All right, well, I'll make the motion to move ahead with the portable radios.
From the ARP funds.
I'll second.
Yes, from the ARP funds.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So that's at least something we can put on there that we've encumbered
Yeah.
an expense. So we'll probably have to put together, I guess you can probably at this point confirm. Let me stop here. We'll bring this up with council tonight. so
Yes,
make
and
sure that
and if I
there
could get
isn't-
some direction there, then it lets me know where to go.
Yeah, we'll at least be able to give a verbal to lock in the rate and then there'll be an ordinance and everything like that to follow to solidify the.
Very good. Thank you, Mr.
We
Lee.
want to bring up the scanning contract too.
Yes, yep, we'll bring that up. Anything that we vote on, I typically try to bring up to make sure that we're on the same page. The discussion on the holding facility, can we push that to September? Is that
Yes, sir.
perfect? And then the only other item, and unfortunately, probably the most salient item relative to today's happenings is the generator conversation that we weren't able to get to.
Well, actually, there's a very short update on.
Perfect.
We had Mid-Ohio Electric
6
and,
minutes.
Cummins Generator Group met with the chief on Friday. No quotes are here yet. Chief, do you want to expand on your meeting with them at all?
So they looked at everything. They looked to see what power requirements we needed, and then they walked through with me on the UPS requirements, and then they departed.
Yeah, that's very short and sweet, but we are waiting on those quotes to return.
What about for the lift station? Do we?
Same situation,
Same.
come down. One of our biggest problems is not
All right.
buying the new generator, because if we're talking about a whole new generator, you
Right.
can't retrofit the diesel into natural gas, but try and get the gas company to tell us what a tap would cost to run that. It's turned into a 2-week ordeal.
Really?
Is that co-op or Columbia?
That's Columbia, and it's about an address.
Do we need one?
Yes, we have to have an address, is what they're doing. We call it the Khyber Run lift station. And they send us a bill to the Khyber Run lift station. They can't issue a tap. address.
Bailey can get an address tomorrow.
We
Well,
create
yeah,
an
but I
address.
just kept thinking this is really silly. Somebody in your office send us a bill.
Well, the bill address is no problem.
It would be,
Tap in.
But, so there, I gotta see what the cost of the natural gas tap would be. The price of the generator isn't that big of a deal, because
Okay.
we sell those every day, so.
Okay,
so there's still some work on that. We are awaiting quotes on both.
well, that's easy enough. So we'll hope for an update in September.
I have one finance thing.
Go for it.
The tire that went through my car, we found the truck.
Really?
that it came off of.
How about that?
Mhm.
So they will be paying for the repair.
Ow.
Great.
He was
He
pulled,
called me today.
huh?
He called me today.
Called you.
How does that happen?
Said he couldn't get a hold of the driver of the car. So,
Oh, well, I talked to him.
so in any event, I pushed him into Dana, who handles our insurance.
Yeah, so they'll be paying for it.
Good.
He was stopped 2 exits up when he realized he lost a wheel. And
Okay.
after they took my police report, they were going back to the barracks and, oh, what's that guy doing? Well,
That
admitted-
works out.
Yeah.
All right. Good enough. Well, that's good news for us then. That's a good financial topic to end on, Jim. So
Yeah.
thank you for that. Any other business besides that?
No.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we are adjourned.
You haven't done